Good afternoon and welcome back to the final session of the Pentawards Festival today. I'm so excited that you're joining us for a 360-degree view on the current challenges and latest breakthroughs in sustainable packaging design. We have designers, brands and packaging suppliers all in one session to give their opinions. I would like to introduce Jenny Greenwood, Innovation and Sustainability Manager at Butterfly Cannon, Bruno Singalani, Global Head of Brand and Identity at Nestle, Wayne Hallett, Business Development Director at Reflex Group, Bob Taylor, Sustainability Director at UPM Raflatac, and lastly, Stefano Pistoni, who is the Global Business Development Manager, Wine and Spirits Craft Beverages at UPM Raflatac. Following this session, we'll be asking your questions, so make sure you pop them in the Q&A box below. We'll be reading them at the end, but please make your questions and put them in at any time. You can follow us at Pentawards and follow any conversation at the Pentawards Festival. I'm now going to hand over to Stefano, who is the host for today's panel discussion. He is a close friend of mine. He is a partner at the Pentawards and he is well experienced within this field. Good luck, Stefano, and everybody involved. Thank you.
Thank Pentawards for this fantastic lineup of experts. It's really a big pleasure, and I would like to thank each one of them for being here today. This is really important for us. And I would like to stress to all the attendees that we have today represented the value chain of packaging, because we have a brand, an important brand like Nestle, then we have fantastic agencies like Butterfly Cannon. We have important converters of packaging materials like Reflex and raw material suppliers like Raflatac. So it will be very interesting to listen to their opinion and to get their insights. I quickly introduce myself. My name is Stefano Pistoni. I am Global Business Development Manager at UPM Raflatac. Raflatac is a global manufacturer of pressure-sensitive material for a wide range of applications, such as food, beverage, wine, spirits, pharma, and many others. But Raflatac is also recognized as an industry leader in sustainability and front runner in sustainability. That's why we are so happy to host this fantastic panel today and with you. I would like to start this first round of questions starting from Bruno, and then I will ask Jenny, Wayne, and Robert to give their comment, their answer to each question. Anyway, Bruno, my first question is, will the concerns around the hygiene of packaging take priority over sustainability today? What is your opinion on this?
Hi, Stefano. Hello, everyone from the panel and all the audience out there. No, I don't think so, to be honest. I think there are two different trends that are actually now in parallel pushing our industry and all the brands into hopefully a brighter and more sustainable future. But I don't think hygiene factors will be stronger than the ultimate quest for sustainable and better for the planet kind of packaging and brand expressions overall, not only packaging. But I think it's not impossible to match those two ultimately consumer requests, right? Because it's all coming from the same source of need. And I think it's actually our job to not compromise in neither both ends and create solutions that are sustainable but safe. And we know that sometimes it can be tricky. We've been even on our side as a big food company, and food has even a more sensitive lenses over this about hygiene and how consumers perceive food safety. For instance, for the let's say refillable packaging stations, right? How you can put more food into a same packaging device And we know by consumer feedback that there are some struggles or concerns, but I think it's up to us, the industry leaders, and actually to solve those issues and make sure that we can deliver something that is sustainable and safe at the same time.
Okay, thank you, Bruno. Jenny?
Great. So I would actually agree a lot with what Bruno just said there. I think obviously COVID's been a mental time to put, basically. But what it has given us is an opportunity that sped up a lot of many other things that wouldn't have been possible for. So e-commerce has expanded, and it's companies that wouldn't have necessarily been available online before have had to rethink everything. So I think you've got things like that that have also happened because of this virus. Regards hygiene in particular, I think it won't take over from what sustainability is. I think there's a large chunk that sustainability is inherent with everything. And there's some sectors that are a little bit more difficult, such as skincare and makeup, and what people are thinking about sanitation there and what you should be doing. But there's been quite a few, even throughout this period of time, people making real refill pods. I'm trying to think of the name of the person. It's Tara Harper, I think, who's just done a refillable skincare product with a waterlock moisturizer. So you click it into place, which I know certain companies already started to do, but that kind of gets around that kind of fear of having to refill something in a store. You keep your main component and then you refill that section. So going back to Bruno's point about refills, I think people are still really wanting to go down that route as well, and that there will be some sanitation potential issues, and there's ways around that as well. So it's just designing around that. And let alone just for hygiene, I think there's other parts that happen, like I was saying, with e-commerce, which has given us a real opportunity where people have actually learned to use computers a bit more to their advantage. Like you can see right now, we're in here, and people are getting more digitally savvy. So are there things that could drive that way rather than hygiene and things like that, thinking of the opportunities that have actually come out from this situation.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. Wayne?
Good to be here, man. No, I think certainly look at it from my perspective. I think the two will have to learn to coexist anyway between the two of them. I mean, sustainability is always going to be at the forefront of our minds, no matter what we do. We live in a world where sustainability is everything now, and there's no avoiding it. And I think what COVID has actually done, it's a horrible thing that we're all facing, and I think we're out of our comfort zones in so many ways at the moment. I think it's heightened senses, if anything, in so many areas, and in some areas it's actually accelerated things. You take e-commerce, for example. I mean, what would have happened inevitably 5 years down the road has happened a lot quicker in terms of us all using our devices and buying things online. So I think, if anything, it's accelerated a lot of stuff, which is not necessarily bad. But, you know, I think sustainability will always be at the forefront of everyone's mind. And therefore, I think from a brand expression point of view, it expresses itself through its packaging. And I think, therefore, the brand expression that you're going to have with any product would need to express some version of sustainability to whoever's purchasing it. So certainly, I think, if anything, it's going to accelerate everything. And, you know, it's the brands of today have got to embrace community and a social aspect for what they do in the sense of keeping up with sustainability and being at the forefront of sustainability. So yeah, that's my personal view of it.
Okay, thank you, Wayne. Bob?
Hey, good day, everybody. It's nice to be with you today. And of course, I concur with my colleagues on the panel that, you know, hygiene's critical, but sustainability and the topics around that are as important as ever. You know, I think, you know, the issues of climate change, plastic pollution, biodiversity loss, you know, they haven't disappeared anywhere. In fact, if you look at the media, you look at politicians, even investors, you know, these topics are ever more and ever more acute on their agendas. And, you know, some scientists are also linking the emergence of zoonotic diseases like COVID actually to the pressure that we're putting on the planet's resources in terms of biodiversity loss, for example. So I think, you know, sustainability, like I said, it's more acute than ever. We see that every day in the number of inquiries that we get from customers, our converter partners, through the brands, through investors. and even just from the people in our factories who we're working with, you know. So I think, you know, the evidence is clearly there that sustainability is probably rising up the agenda more quicker than ever.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Thank you all for your comment. Now I have a second question that I'm very curious about your, which will be your answer. The question is, can luxury packaging be sustainable? And how does this compare to the FMCG markets? What I want to say is that in many cases, sustainable packaging is seen as something that is rough, that is not with a nice touch and feel, and most of the people think that if a packaging look rough and with a little bit of recycled particle, it means that it is sustainable, but which is not true at all. So now, how the luxury packaging can be sustainable? Let's restart this round again from Bruno.
I think it's an interesting point, and actually I think it's the opposite. I think it's a misconception to think that luxury cannot be sustainable. I think it's the other way around. Luxury brands, they have more margins, therefore it's easier for them to invest more in packaging. I think a mass brand and very popular, democratized kind of popular brand, mass brand, it's harder because you have a big chain, and then you have to, I mean, this is what we face, for instance, in my experience here at Nestle. Every little thing that we want to tweak and to make to a different change to make our brands and products more sustainable, it's always a huge effort because there's so many established stuff like production lines. The whole chain is designed for that, and then we have normally shorter margins. We're not a luxury brand at all, and I think that's where the luxury brands have this privilege to actually partner with this kind of initiatives for refillable, reusable, and even, of course, using more sustainable materials like glass or aluminum and so on. I think my point of view, I'm not a luxury expert. I've already worked with some luxury brands, but I think nowadays that's an easier job if compared with a mass market FMCG kind of brand, which is my current situation. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Bruno. Jenny?
So I do agree some parts with Bruno on that, and then other parts maybe not. So I do think that 100% luxury packaging can be sustainable. In fact, when you see most trends that go through everything, it starts normally from a luxury end and then kind of comes out later on, a couple of years later in other sectors. I wouldn't say it's necessarily easier from a supply chain perspective. I think there's lots of supply chain issues in the luxury sphere as well. So that's the only part that I kind of disagree with there. But I do think there's a massive strive towards it, and lots of companies are doing it. So I love to give examples because I think it always puts people in the right mindset of what some people are doing out there. So Ruinart, who we work with, but one of their projects that they've done in the past that launched last year, I believe, was their Second Skin. So Ruinart's like for those who don't know it, it's a very luxury champagne brand, and they changed all their secondary packaging to be working with Pastella and working with Croppers, which are a paper mill in the UK. They changed their secondary pack, so it's a second skin, and normally all their packs are overly embellished and things like that. So they're really showing that you can do something that's still luxury and sustainable and make those changes. Whereas I think some people used to have quite a big fear that, like you said at the start, Stefano, that lots of people think, oh, it has to be eco by being a craft paper. Oh, it has to be like this. Oh, yeah, it looks like that. So, oh, these are the classic norms. Oh, it has to be so minimal. There's just this one part on here and it's one black ink. But actually, you can see what people are doing and how people are using it in the luxury sphere. And with that, they like it was 9 times later than their previous one. It made it fully recyclable. I think it's just such a good shout showing what some of the luxury companies are doing. And I think a lot is going on in the FMCG sphere as well. I think there are some difficulties because bigger mass markets maybe, and there's lots going on there. But yeah, I think you can really be sustainable in the luxury sphere, and it will drive what will happen in the FMCG sphere.
Yeah, if I can comment this, Jenny, I think you're totally right, but I did that example because, especially with the designing agencies in the past, when we were talking about a new project, a new design, they were asking me, please, Stefano, give me something that look craft, something that look a little bit recycled. But this is greenwashing because this is how the package look externally, but the credentials are totally different, are something that you have to investigate, learn, and study. And I think especially for the designers, you have to go deep in learning which are the credentials of the material that you are selecting. So I totally agree with you in that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I do agree with that as well. Regards, I guess from a design agency perspective, and when you see lots of things that are out in the market, people do see things that are just craft, and it's a perception now that must be like, yay, tick the box, looks wonderful. But it's not the case, and I think that's why it's so important to work together in collaboration to ensure you are using the correct materials, not just at a design agency, but throughout the entire supply chain. So yeah.
At the same time, sorry to interrupt, but just adding and building what Jenny is talking about, it's always tricky to find this balance on using established codes that consumer will understand, and clearly without having to read any claims or marketing text, that this is a eco-friendly kind of packaging or product, right? Which is the role of the craft paper that I totally agree has been now abused. But in a way, the creative side of this stream must find efficient ways to communicate sustainable or planet-friendly kind of materials and visual codes without compromising the perception of value, right, of premiumness. And that's where those two universes might crash, the black and gold and the craft paper. How to build luxurious brands without necessarily losing too much or abusing to a shortcut like the craft paper. I think Nespresso is a good example of that. It's our most sustainable brand, even though there's multiple challenges and we are fully aware, but currently we use 80% of recyclable aluminum, which is great. But then how you communicate that without losing your core brand assets, like the black color of the brand and the details and the minimalism of all of that. So you need also to use multiple touch points as a brand, not only packaging. Packaging is a key, plays a key role, but I think it's also understanding the 360 communication environment of the brand to leverage that communication to consumers.
Yeah, thank you, Bruno. Wade, any comment on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly as a label supplier and as a packaging supplier, we get asked all the time to find more innovative ways to make things more sustainable. And of course, the old conundrum of cost comes into it. And I agree with Bruno, is that a lot of, let's say, the prestige side of things, you know, the luxury brands. I mean, I'm with Bruno on this one. I'm by no means a boffin when it comes to it, but certainly I think the affordability of a prestige brand can merit the costs of actually having packaging that comes alongside of it and the development that goes behind it in the experiential part of it, in terms of opening the pack. And it's more than just getting something that costs you £1,000. It's about getting something that, as you open it, there's an experience that comes with it, you know? So it's the fact that the thing unfolds and plays music and fairies start dancing around, whatever it might be. I mean, I don't know, but all I know is that, you know, they can afford to carry the cost. But I will say this, I think much like, if you take fashion as an example, you know, one thing you see today in Milan down the catwalk will trickle down in terms of technology in months and sort of, you know, 18 months down the road, it'll suddenly start trickling down into normal fashion. And I think on the positive side of having this prestige side of things, I think it enables experimentation a lot more. And that kind of co-funds what we do on the opposite side, on the FMCG side. And it broadens people's horizons, I think, in being able to think outside the box, because these kind of things can fund experimentation, whereas ordinarily you wouldn't be able to do it. I mean, we did a brand recently where the brand owner of a particular sparkling wine wanted to put a wood label, Stefano, and it's you know, we do a lot of work with UPM, make no bones about that, but you know, so we used a wood label, a genuine slither of wood on a bottle of sparkling wine, and it wasn't cheap from a material perspective, but they wanted to convey a message through the brand identity, the fact that the sparkling champagne, you know, it's been, you know, the way it was made, etc., etc. So I think there's a lot that the package can say of itself sometimes, but I think you're right, Bruno. You got to have a lot more behind it to reinforce the message. It's not just that the package is a silent salesman and tells you everything you need to know. It doesn't work like that. But you know, so yeah, that's my view.
Okay, thank you, Wayne. Bob, let's listen to your standpoint and how we can help brands to communicate sustainability.
Yeah, I think you know, we have thousands of different label products in our portfolio, and when it comes to sustainability, I think whether it's for a luxury product or a fast-moving consumer good, you know, we can apply the basic principles of sustainable design to all of those, and you know, you can reduce the amount of raw materials. You can find ways to use recycled content. And for example, you know, it's true that you know, 5 or 6 years ago, if we wanted to use a recycled paper, it would look a bit different. But you know, we're doing the same job now with filmic labels. You can have recycled plastic in your filmic label, which looks and feels exactly the same as the virgin fossil version. You know, the question there is a question of price and quality and operations, and you know, we can actually all match those now as well. So I think there's a level playing field there, and the same principles apply. And the other reality is that, you know, if you think about it from a regulatory framework as well, you know, whether you're luxury or fast moving consumer goods, you will face the same legislative and regulatory pressures anyway. You know, responsible sourcing, packaging waste directive, single-use plastics and the impact of microplastics, you know, carbon taxes. I had a first factory begging for help to understand their obligations for carbon tax. You know, it doesn't matter whether you're making products for luxury goods or not, you will face that same question. And I think Bruno's right, you know, the margins might be there to allow you to experiment, design better, but also they're there to allow you to brand and lead from the front, you know. So I think, yeah, the same principles apply, regardless of the segment and sector you're in.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Bob. Very interesting conversation. Now, what is the perfect way to work holistically with a brand, design, agency, and manufacturer to create a sustainable pack? This is, according to my point of view, a fantastic question. So let's restart again. Bruno, up to you.
Oh, that's a tricky one. Huh? It's not an easy answer, and I don't think there's a magic formula to solve that. I can speak from my perspective and my experience and how this has been moving forward within our company and our brands and so on. I think there is a strong push and pressure from external stakeholders, consumers, and I think this is the main driver of the change, right? We all know that we need to do business differently. I think when there is a strong top-down alignment, and in our case, in my case, our CEO was fully committed with this agenda. It's really a high topic in his agenda to the point that even small initiatives that are promising in a way, he's very close to and interested on how we can scale up and so on. So I think this is definitely one of the secrets to make it happen. I think when the whole organization and we're all aligned into one same direction and with clear intentions, and partnering with the right partners, of course, right? You need to find the ones that are willing to be your partner in crime, because literally it might need some you need some time to give up on some stuff, and not only externally. I'm also talking about internally. You need to have the great leadership, the right minds together, willing to take some risks, to give up in some areas to be able to move forward the agenda. But for me, that there's a clear need of alignment and a clear vision, and I think in our case we are very good hands. Let's say we have lots of big commitments publicly that anyone can look at what Nestlé is willing to do. This comes pretty much from the executive board, the CEO, and the whole leadership team is really pushing through that. And I think we're looking into the right path, having the right partners, and I'm confident. That's something that I'm very passionate about. I'm not the expert, even within the Nestlé. I'm more in the brand side and the design and visual identity side, but I am definitely connected and being part of different discussions around the topic, and I can feel that, and that's what I think it's really working on for us.
Okay, thank you, Bruno. Jenny.
Cool. So I think collaboration is king to everything on this. I think you need to have everyone in the same room. We do things like design tables where you get all the relevant people at the start of a project together, which is really weird because you think you'd automatically do that when you start a project, but it rarely happens. So we start with design tables, and we ensure that we get a direction, timescale, ensure that there's a clear target to meet. Like Bruno was saying, if you've got targets as part of the company, if I'm coming from a design agency angle, from our angle here, so we get everyone all together when we do that, and then make sure that the targets are there. We know what we're aiming towards. Otherwise, if you don't know what you're aiming towards, how can you design appropriately for it and know what materials or what your restrictions could be or what you want to drive towards, because it would just be finger in the air design. And then we have a system at our office that we call the conscious design process, which basically is going through what the variables are that people need. So what was their directive? Why are they doing this? What's the time that needs to get to market? How long's the lifespan of things? Everything like that. And then we have 23 elements that we look through, like including materials, what kind of manufacturing side. So where is it being, let's say, where is it being manufactured? And where is it being distributed to, and things like that. So everyone thinks about the whole thing, because especially in, I think, larger brands, it's very difficult to get all those relevant people in a meeting together. And I think it's really important to do that at the start and then throughout the project. The one thing that I think is missing out of the list of people here, you've got brand, design agency, manufacturer, but you don't have like someone from an MRF, so materials recovery facility. So you need someone to be able to say, is it worth something? Because will they be being recycled? Is there an issue with this? I think it'd be great to have those people on board in those kind of meetings. And as Bob mentioned earlier, you know, you've got different legislations. You've got the EU's 2030 SDGs. You've got Single-Use Plastics Directive. They need to all be considered throughout, because by the time you start a project to when it's actually launched, I think some people must think it happens overnight. It doesn't. It happens within a space of time. So therefore you need to take those things on board, and then imagine, like, it might be a year and a half later before it launches, and you don't want to be that person who launches something and next year they're saying you're going to have to pay this much more because you've used that material. So I think ensuring that we all work holistically, take on board those legislations as well, and what's being said, learning from different bits of data, talking to the manufacturers, talking to the MRFs, talking to the brand and what they need as well. And sometimes it's also questioning each other. Because I'm not saying the greatest idea just comes from one single person. It's great to have that, but I think sometimes just being in a meeting and be able to go, I don't agree with that, or could you just explain that? It just doesn't seem like it's connecting right. Why would you do that when people are saying this? And that's what those challenges is what makes something, I think, great come out of working holistically.
Yeah. Anyone was commenting? No. Well, okay. I think if I can add anything to this, is that we spend a lot of time educating brands and designers about materials, how to make the right choice, and this helps probably all the value chain to make the right choice. But it's quite complex because you have to consider the whole life cycle of the product. So this makes your job quite challenging. Wayne.
Yeah, I mean, I think just pick up on something that Bruno said as well. I think if you look at our business, the whole DNA, the heart of what we do is all about sustainability, and we're on this mission to be the most sustainable label company known to man, basically, and you know, we are well on that road, and we are achieving all of our objectives in terms of sustainability and the environment and all that kind of thing. But I think working holistically, I believe that to make this work, it's got to be together and early on in the design process with all stakeholders there sort of arm in arm, if you like, because the old iterative way of just dropping a design on somebody and saying, we'll go and make this, it causes conflict, and you know, it tends to slow the process down invariably if you're not careful. So we'd like to get involved on the outset, and we've also pioneered some really state-of-the-art prototyping that enables people to visualize and see packs before they even go live. You know, a real example of what you expect to see on the shelf. We call it Proof Plus. Bit of a plug, but I'm just putting it in there anyway. But it's something that enables a brand owner to visually see something, you know, touch and feel, not just for color, but for its actual shape and form. And that's something we can do, and that's something we help agencies like yourself. You know, it's a really state-of-the-art thing, and it's tremendous in helping that whole design process come to its fruition in terms of the way you imagine something. And again, you know, Albert Einstein said, a person who doesn't make a mistake never tried anything new, you know. So I think to fail is okay, but it's about learning as we go, and you know, we're never going to get it right all the time, and that's why we need each other to rely on each other and lean on each other as an industry more than ever before. And I think we've all got our roles to play within this in terms of what we can bring in terms of expertise, all the way back from Stefano's side, where they grow the trees and make the pulp and make the label, make the paper, you know, to us that try and do print a really good job. But the point is this, is that it has to be from the outset early on, I think, to make it work.
Thank you, Wayne. Bob?
Maybe just to pick up, Wayne, you mentioned that forest film, that wood label, that's actually what's on this bottle here. And I think this is a great example where, you know, the value chain to get that even to you know, might have 6 or 7 steps in it. And, you know, when we're talking about collaboration and designing together, my experience is that you rarely have more than 2 or 3 steps together. And if you want to really think all the way through to the end of life as a product, because that's what we should do when we're designing a product, where is this going to end up at the end of the day? You know, it takes Jenny's point. Is it going to go through the MRF? Is it going to be sorted into the stream that's optimal to recover the maximum amount of raw material for the next circular route? You know, I think these are all really important questions, and we can't do it without actually understanding the whole chain and where, you know, where is the Nespresso capsule or whatever going to end up in the bin? You know, what kind of recycling systems are there in place? What do we need to do to optimize those? So, you know, having a collaboration is great, but it takes a hell of a lot of time, it takes a hell of a lot of effort, and you need all the pieces of the jigsaw to come together to actually succeed. And at the same time, you then also need the experts who have enough local knowledge to ensure that even if you design it beautifully, it's actually going to work in practice. And I think, you know, that's the critical thing, you know, finding the right experts for the right location and the right system, you know, and making sure that we have the time to come up with the good solutions that will last more than the 18 months that, you know, Jenny mentioned, you know.
This is what we call a 360-degree eco-design approach, okay,
Yeah.
from raw material sourcing till the end of life of the product. So yeah. This is the way we recommend designers and brands to approach new projects. Are you doing this, Jenny, at the Butterfly Cannon?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are thinking of everything from the start to the finish. So we try and involve, when we're working with the brands that we work with, we try to ensure that we are looking at all the materials, the manufacturing, ensuring how would you dispose of this afterwards if you were a person. So take yourself, like you see it every day when we used to work in offices. When you'd go in and you would look at like the bins on the street and you'd be like, oh, why someone put that there when there's a perfectly good recycling bin next to it? You can't ignore that's happening all the time. Or someone's put something into a recycling bin and you're like, that's not recyclable. Why would you have done that? And like in our conscious design process, one of the key things is about clear communication as one of the things, because that is a massive part that is missing for so many. That is so complicated. And you look at something and something will say it's recyclable, or someone will see the green dot on it and be like, oh, that's recyclable. It doesn't necessarily mean that, but people think that, so they just pop it in there. So I think one of the key things is, if you're thinking about that whole approach, is a lot of people forget about, they think mainly up to the point, or used to think mainly up to the point where it lands with a client, like, boom, sale, lovely job, everyone's happy, they're posting on social media that they love it. And then I think that's it, done. But actually it's the entire process and going, okay, well, what happens now? Like we speak with Veolia and people like that to work out, is that material worth anything? Because actually a lot of materials that are going into the recycling now are worth, some of them are worth negative. If you think of it as like a stock exchange, some of it's worth negative. So why would you put that in when they're gonna maybe struggle with it later? Like, is having that clear communication pass with everyone to ensure that what you're doing the best that you can at that point in time and trying to future-proof it. Obviously there's going to be developments going on the whole time. But yeah, and I think also going back to like points that Bruno made earlier about when you get to a certain point and sometimes you need to give up on a project. Yeah, you come across some really difficult times and some of them just like, oh, maybe we should have gone with 2 ideas and try and work out what the options are in there. Or you go, it's time to go, we cannot launch this in time. It needs more testing. And then it's like an honest, frank discussion with the brand and everyone together and going, we really want this, however, it's not going to launch in time. Can we go for either rearrange the launch date? Very highly unlikely to happen. Or could you do like a two pathways? So you go, okay, this is going to take another year of testing. We would really like to see this reach the shelf. And you kind of parallel test one thing whilst you launch another, whilst you're trying to, you know, innovate and get better with this other thing. And sometimes that happens with numerous projects that we work on, so you can ensure that you don't just go, oh, it's so difficult at the moment, it's not going to happen. That you go, actually, let's just try and, you know, persevere through. And sometimes it can't launch in time, which means therefore you have to go for plan B, but you still carry on going because it would make the whole thing come together really well. So.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jenny. Okay, very interesting conversation. I thank you, all of you, for your passionate answers. Last question. So what does the future of sustainable packaging look like? Should all packaging have aspect of sustainability? Let's say I'm more interested in the first part about the future, what we can say as insight to the audience that is watching us through their PC, laptop, or mobile phones. So, Bruno, what does the future of sustainable packaging look like for you?
No, there's an interesting one, not easy to answer as well, but I think the first obvious answer for that is less, definitely less packaging. I think that's overall direction that it's obvious, right? We need to reduce first, then definitely less of single-use packaging, and definitely not, there will be no space for non-reusable or not recyclable, at least. And then of course there is a lot of room to improve the recyclability structures that we have in place in different regions in the planet, right? Because we might think that the European reality is everywhere, but it's not the case. I mean, there's lots of places where it's really challenging to simply try to recycle a packaging. So I think technology will be also a key enabler to find more sustainable materials like biodegradable and so on. But definitely less packaging. And there was a question here in the Q&As about, isn't the future of packaging no packaging at all? And I don't think so. I think packaging, well, I mean, it will be impossible to buy my favorite juice without a packaging, right? It will either be, or I basically drink directly from the source, but I don't think so. So there will be a packaging. The point is, probably this can be at least recyclable minimally, and the infrastructure will have to be there, or reusable, refillable. And I think that second stream would get more popularity as the technology also enables to be more affordable and so on. We're already living this, right? We see in our daily lives, I mean, again, here in this environment, this context, but we see people reusing their own nice bottles for their teas in the office, or the waters, right? Where it used to be lots of empty bottles. Now you see everybody coming with their own cool, well-designed, by the way, reusable bottles.
Yeah, thank you, Bruno. Jenny?
So yeah, I agree with what Bruno is saying with that. I think the words I would use is more likely circularity and transparency. So I think a lot of people are more asking what is going into something, and I think a lot of companies, not on purpose, like where everyone's saying that people are greenwashing, I just don't think people are communicating things or being clear enough or transparent enough about everything. So I think that would be a big part of it. And going on that first stream of recycling, like Bruno said, and the second stream of refill, it's a lot like what I'm sure you're all aware of, the MacArthur circular economy systems diagram, the one that like looks like a little butterfly either side. And then you've got the recycling on the outside, which is like still things that people need to get to, but it's one of the easiest ones to get to, really. And then the whole other systems on the inside that are like refill, reuse, sharing society and things like that, that actually it's kind of like recycling is a stepping stone onto what more we could do to be more circular, that you're going to see more and more people venturing into. And we've had discussions with this with some of our clients, and we've looked at some perfumes with Oriflame, it has to be refilled and things like that, so you ensure that something can be reused or refilled afterwards. And then if I think of other things, like if I go into a particular area, sorry to be really annoying, but if I zoom in on something like beauty, a lot of things are about waterless, because everyone's worried about how much water there is in the world. So it's not only just the packaging, it's the products, and that changes what the packaging will be to be able to work. So a lot about the water content, you're seeing it with lots of small sachets, and then you fill up with liquid at home, so people aren't shipping water everywhere. I think you're going to get more and more things that will be concentrates or waterless, like soap bars and things like that. And refills, like Diptyque have done some recently as well with their Keep Forever products. Like there's going to be more refills, more circularity of products.
Okay. Wayne?
Yeah, I think someone once said that if something exists in today's environment, it needs to be sustainable, and it just has to be. And therefore, I think we have to have a shared vision of what that sustainability is for any given pack. And we shouldn't allow the constraints of what we have today to get in the way of how we design, I don't think, nor the cost constraints that go around it. But equally, I think, we need to think of the generations that are to come and what we're leaving behind. So when we do make things, we make it ethically, we make it sustainably. All the components that we do as a business, it's something we do all the time, and we are really hot on it in terms of, you know, how much water we use, how much electricity we use, how we use it, where we get it from. And I'm sure most businesses today are going that same way. And I think, therefore, coming back to your point, Jenny, about the circular economy, I think we've got to bear this in mind. You know, polypropylene, for example, in the UK is not widely recycled, not yet anyway. You know, but I think rather than something ending up as a pot plant on your veranda, I think, you know, it should be put back into a circular economy, like polyester, for example, going round and round in the same loop. And I think that's kind of where we need to get to, personally. And yeah, I think packaging, if it is, it has to be sustainable.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
Yeah.
What is the future of?
That's a great question. I wish I could see the future, but our job, I suppose, is to try and find a way to design also for the future. And you know, Bruno mentioned, you know, there's always an opportunity to reduce packaging. You know, Jerry mentioned recycle. You know, the circularity question Wayne mentioned. I also think, you know, there's a huge role ahead, naturally, being a forester, but also working for a massive forest owner, that for renewables, you know, replacing fossils going forward. You know, chemistry, technology is making that more possible than ever. And, you know, the fact that we can turn a tree now into a piece of plastic, you know, is something I dreamt about 10 years ago. It's real, it's there now. And lots of opportunities will open up there, especially when we think of the context of the climate discussion. But then I think the other thing that excites me is that, you know, we see on the shelf now packages which are, you know, telling the story of farm to fork. You know, I think, you know, digitalization will also offer the opportunity going forward to tell the story of this package. You know, where has it come from? You know, why can't we tell the story of the forest where the paper packages come from, or the carton? And, you know, also, you know, why can we not add in, you know, instructions, not just on a stamp, but, you know, this is the best and optimal way to recycle your product going forward. You know, where can you find the right system and stream? So that I think digitalization also can be designed into packaging to tell the story of the package and, you know, where it should ultimately go, because our job is to design stuff to keep it in the system and not to throw it away. You know, that's our big job.
Yeah, exactly. Guys, with your passion, we have awakened our audience with a high number of questions that probably you are all seeing on your screen. And I think there are some questions that I think we can discuss all together. I will choose two that are connected. One is, how can we design to communicate sustainability without the standard crafty look? So this is something that we discussed at the very beginning. And there is another question from Chandru, that how has the adoption of LCA to help the design element of packaging proliferated? So I will leave this to maybe Jenny and Bob initially as, let's say, main expert in this. How can we answer to these friends?
Maybe if I take the LCA question. We started using LCA as a way to describe the footprint of our products 7-8 years ago. And as we know, LCA can be probably indicative at best, but it's still one of the best tools out there for telling the story of the components of the package. We are now at the stage where we are trying to offer a tailored service. And if I think that 5 years ago, we were offering maybe 2 or 3 tailored calculations a year. We're now up at the stage of doing more than 200. And, you know, that is an incredibly valuable service, because you're able then to give your customer the indication, at least, that product A is better for the environment than product B. Now, of course, LCA has traditionally been designed to talk about how to reduce negative impacts. I think the other trick that we're trying to do with LCAs now is to try to build in how we can tell the story of the positive impacts. So ecosystem service benefits, for example, associated with forests, and what that means for the package. So, you know, I think LCAs have really taken off in terms of demand for information, and you know, it's a continually developing field.
Okay, Jenny?
So also just off of the LCA one, I think the life cycle analysis, just in case anyone on here doesn't know what that is, it's really good to help guide certain things, because if you don't have it, you'll just have one person who's read one article who says, you'll have clients come in and do this as well, who read one article out of a newspaper and gone, we're going to make it out of this material, and you can question it, but they'll be like, I've read it in this newspaper, so that's what we're doing. And having an LCA, which is actually, I'm glad to hear from Bob that you're doing so many more of them, 200 or so, yeah. Doing them, we've actually done them in other arenas, such as looking in glass and aluminium. A lot of them have done them in a way that just so they can learn about how good their products are and stuff like that and things like that. So I think sometimes it's good to go out to the relevant sources and ask each of those, because I find it very difficult to find up-to-date versions of LCAs from glass companies. Like, they're all from like 10 years ago, normally, most of them who've done things. So I think it does really help guide, because you can put some form of figure to something for certain conversations with clients.
Jenny, that's a really good point. And actually, that's also why you need experts in the room if you're going to start talking about LCAs, because there's so many complexities around LCAs that you really often need an expert to help. And also, I think your point about data availability is really important. You know, the aim should be to use as much primary data as possible, because otherwise you're using very generalized databases, which actually, what are they actually going to tell you at the end of the day? That's the other question. So, but lots of opportunities with it.
That's certainly something that we're doing a lot of. We're doing a lot of LCA studies at the moment together with you guys, in presenting the case of using one substrate versus another and the benefits of it versus water that's been consumed, the less electricity used to make it, et cetera, et cetera. And it's yielding tremendous results for us. So yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
Okay. I would like to do the last questions, and then we have to close because we are taking a lot of time today. There is a question from Hannah asking, how can we as designers move away from the greenwashed facade mode of exclusion based on race, class, gender, ability, and status that is the mainstream sustainability movement? In other words, how can we improve the accessibility of sustainability? This is very interesting. Bruno, do you have any clue on that? How can we improve the accessibility of sustainability?
Well, doing more, I guess, right? I think we need to make it mainstream. We need to make it mandatory on all the our projects and for all the brands. I think there is an element of behavior change, which is not easy, and I think we as human beings, as a species, we're not really good at changing, and it definitely takes some time to understand what's going on. And I think there is a shared responsibility in that sense to do more in both ends. I mean, we as consumers, shoppers, and but also all the elements in this equation. Definitely the brands, governments, regulations, and it's, as we said before, there's no solo run and hero solution for this big issue. I think it's a combination of those multiple efforts, lots on education as well, making this whole process more intuitive, more user-friendly, in the sense that it should be no-brainer how to recycle this product or what to do with this packaging. And in that sense also to trigger this sense of, or this notion of urgency that we need to do, and we need to change the way we consume, the way we shop, the way we produce, the way we design. So in all the different elements in the industry, I mean, as a designer or as a shopper, there's definitely multiple behavior changes that must happen, and I think it's a shared responsibility at the end. Of course, bigger players should co-lead this movement, and I think it's happening like that. But it's there's no easy solution or easy answer for this one. I'm sorry.
I can imagine. Any comment, Jenny, Bob, Wayne, and then we are to close because we are out of time.
Well summarized, Bruno.
Guys, this has been absolutely amazing. We've got so many questions coming in and a few hundred people online. I've got a feeling there might be a part 2 to this, but to be continued for now. I want to thank all of our panelists. Thanks to Stefano, thanks to Bob, thanks to Jenny, Wayne, and of course, Bruno. Guys, this has been day 1 of the Pentawards Festival. It's been a lot more successful than I could imagine. So thank you for all your support on this. If anybody's missed today's presentations, they will be on demand and available. I want to thank all of the speakers from today, my team, of course, and all of you guys at home watching. Thank you for all your questions, for all your comments, for all your shares. And you can continue the conversation online using the hashtag Pentawards Festival. Make sure you follow UPM Raflatac, Butterfly Canon, obviously Reflex, Nestle. We'll be back tomorrow, sharp at 11:30 BST with more speakers, which include Danielle Monti from Amazon, John Glasgow from Vault 49, Lu Chen from Xiaomi, and we have a special session on mental health, which is very important. I'm Adam Ryan, head of the Pentawards. You've been watching the first ever Pentawards Festival. Good evening, stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.